everyone, welcome to Denman's Den. Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad to welcome you here. This morning, every morning actually, when I wake up, I like to, before I actually get fully up and going, I like to check the news stories and do maybe a little journaling and quiet reflection. And then I get up and go onward with my day. Well, this morning I did that and I noted a few of the news stories that really struck me. King Charles III and Pope Leo XIV were the first British monarch and pontiff to pray together at a church service since the Reformation in the 16th century. And that was truly an historical event and a very positive one. And then I noted that Tropical Storm Melissa will become a hurricane by the end of this day that we're in right now, and is expected to bring days of downpours to the Dominican Republic, to Haiti, and to Jamaica, and trigger catastrophic and life-threatening flash flooding and landslides. Definitely horrible news for the Caribbean island nations. And I will be thinking of all the people that will be affected by this storm for sure. I also noted that the United States government is still shut down tight, and that today would have been payday for thousands upon thousands of government employees who are now trying to figure out how to survive with no income because Republicans would rather declare a holiday than try to work out the issues that have deadlocked the passage of the budget. And then I saw the last news story, and the stark symbolism of it hit me like a ton of bricks, burying me with painful sadness and anger, reminding me again that we have lost our way in that perilous descent into authoritarianism. And that was when I made a decision to do this broadcast, and I sat down and put it together. I saw pictures, dozens of them, of the complete destruction of the entire east wing of the White House. Please allow me just briefly to give you a little bit of history of the east wing of the White House before I show you the pictures of its complete destruction. The White House, first built in 1792, between 1792 and 1800, is owned by the American people and overseen by the National Park Service. The East Wing, built in 1902 and significantly expanded in 1942 to include the White House Museum and a bunker underneath the facility called the President Emergency Operations Center, which President Franklin Roosevelt had constructed during World War II to facilitate and secure wartime meetings and operations. Since 1902, the East Wing of the White House, besides containing the White House Museum and, as I mentioned, the presidential bunker, also contained all of the First Lady's offices and meeting rooms and that of her staff. We haven't had a first man yet, but that would have been the location of his offices as well. And remember how significant that is when you consider that probably the greatest First Lady the United States ever had was Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a true champion for civil rights, for the poor, and for the American worker. And then there was Jackie Kennedy, who, during her time as First Lady, worked tirelessly to promote the arts and culture in American society. Lady Bird Johnson was a very active First Lady in environmental causes, and even introduced a bill into Congress called the United States Beautification Act of 1965, which passed and is still being enacted today. Rosalind Carter was one of the foremost spokespersons for mental health issues during her time as First Lady. Laura Bush had a huge impact on education in the United States with her No Child Left Behind campaign and resulting congressional bill. Michelle Obama made supporting military families and spouses a personal mission and increasingly bonded with military families, to the point where she received several national awards for her work with homeless veterans and their families. All of these hardworking, historically significant First Ladies have had the location of their history-making activities and legacies torn down. Just let that painful fact sink in for a minute. Now, just to let you know, construction projects on the White House campus typically go to review to the National Capital Planning Commission, the NCPC. It is the central planning agency of the federal government, and particularly for those buildings and structures in Washington, D.C. since 1952. Under the 1952 law that created the commission, if the federal agency requesting the project does not agree with the commission's views, the agency may proceed to take action in accordance with its legal responsibilities and authority. So says the law regarding that commission. Now, this wording, unfortunately, leaves a loophole in the law, of which the brazenly law-breaking Trump and his administration took full advantage. The National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 requires reviews of projects that affect most historic buildings. But the White House, the Supreme Court building, and the United States Capitol are exempt from the required reviews. Priya Jain, who is the chairperson of the Heritage Conservation Committee at the Society of Architectural Historians, said that past White House renovations, even as minor as renovations to a shed, have gone through public review procedures established in the Historic Preservation Act, even though it was not required. Ms. Jain indicated that Trump and his administration are the first to completely ignore and disregard the public review procedures. Her organization called for the demolition to be halted, but without success. The White House had said it plans to submit the ballroom construction plan to the NCPC, yet it went ahead with the East Wing demolition and did not submit those plans, as it said that it would. Even though Trump's ballroom will eventually, I think, go before the National Capital Planning Commission, truthfully, the panel lacks clear authority to outright reject projects from the White House. Besides which, The commission is stacked with Trump loyalists. 3 of the 5 appointed members on the 12-member commission are appointed by the president, including Will Scharf, who is also Trump's White House staff secretary. With the demolition of the White House's East Wing, Trump broke an earlier commitment not to touch the existing White House structure in any way. On July 31st, 2025, he told reporters, and I will quote directly from the text of what he said, "It won't interfere with the current building. It will be near to it, but not touching it, and pay total respect to the existing building, which I am the biggest fan of." End quote. Explaining this clear reversal of his commitment and promise, Trump, just 2 days ago on October 22nd, said his team determined that the East Wing must be torn down to accommodate the ballroom after consulting with, quote, "some of the best architects in the world," end quote. When pressed, he could not name those architects, and members of his team did not recall any world-renowned architects being consulted. Historic preservationists throughout the United States have expressed alarm over the size of Trump's proposed ballroom, which is expected to be 90,000 square feet. That would make it be nearly twice the size of the main part of the White House, which includes the residence. The National Trust for Historic Preservation put out a statement, and they said this, quote, "We are deeply concerned that the massing and height of the proposed new construction will overwhelm the White House itself and may also permanently disrupt the carefully balanced classical and unpretentious design of the White House, and thereby communicate a message to the wider world that does not represent who we are as Americans." Trump has said that, quote, "me and some friends of mine," end quote, "will pay for the ballroom at no cost to the taxpayers." And yesterday, he released a list of 37 donors to date that include companies like Amazon, Apple, Caterpillar, Google, Comcast, HP, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Microsoft, T-Mobile, and Union Pacific Railroad. Now, this also goes against the laws regarding all the buildings on the Capitol Mall in Washington, D.C., which belong, according to the law, to the people of the United States of America. Just check Title VI of the Washington, D.C. Property Law Code, and you will see for yourself. These are public buildings and belong to all of us. So using private money to alter them is technically against the law. Trump has long complained about the lack of a ballroom for large events at the White House. He has often claimed that his predecessors have talked about the lack of a ballroom for, quote, "at least 150 years," end quote. But it's unclear who he is referencing because none of his predecessors ever mentioned wanting a ballroom in the White House, nor was it even the smallest blip on the radar of their priorities. The ballroom, truthfully and above all, has been a personal priority of only one person, Trump, and is a strong indicator of just how askew and backwards his priorities for our country truly are. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer's opening remarks on the Senate floor Wednesday tied the president's work on the East Wing to the current government shutdown, saying that Trump was not focused on dealing with the issue of threatened health care coverage for millions of Americans, but on what Senator Schumer called, quote, vanity projects like this one that don't do anything to benefit the American people. They only benefit Trump and his ego, end quote. Okay, now for the pictures of the destruction of the East Wing of the White House. While you are looking at them, please think about this. Here we have evidence of the president tearing down a symbol of our republic and building a symbol that is really a symbol about authoritarian power, about a government that serves the rich, and to hell with the rest of us. Here we have evidence that in his misogyny, Trump is also tearing down the legacies of many, many first ladies who have done more for this country than he ever has and ever will. The definition of evil actions for thousands of years has been those actions which kill, steal, and destroy. Now you can see for yourself, writ large with cranes, excavators, backhoes, and bulldozers, the destruction wrought by Trump and his administration. Not just of a building, but of a nation, of a people, of a democratic constitutional republic, of our teeming masses yearning to breathe free. Let us not allow the lamp beside the golden door to be extinguished by selfish, destructive, vengeful, evil narcissism. Let us overcome the darkness by letting our light shine so brightly that the darkness is banished and the lamp of liberty once again lights the way for the whole world. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks for listening. And please like and subscribe if you wish, and I will see you again very soon. Take care.